We're going to look at the extensible, of course, it's known as the HTML, Extensible Hypertext Markup Language. Now, this is one of the latest languages that you can use to create your website files. Of course, you have the one that is being used right now, but I don't want to engage you in something that we haven't really seen it being implemented. That is the HTML5. So this is the one that is mostly used in the websites that we have. Of course, the HTML5 is also being used. Maybe in my next classes, I'll be talking about HTML5, but the concept is still the same. The good thing with the extensible is that it brings on board the latest features that you can always have within any kind of website that you are going to interact with. Now, take note. The reason as why maybe we don't, or any given web design class doesn't go straight to maybe introducing you to the content management system, because you need to understand the structure. Yeah, if maybe you have a problem with your WordPress, are you able to check where the problem is and identify the errors? Yeah, so that's why you need to understand at the very basics, how can you come up with a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 web pages, integrate them together, create some content, yeah, have some video content, text content, image context, and so on. So let's look at this extensible HTML, what it is, and what you can get from it. Yeah. So basically, this is a language used to create and organize web pages. Yeah. As I mentioned, we have different versions of HTML, and this is the latest, one of the latest options that you can always use. So it's newer, but not, it's newer than the original one, HTML. It also has some kind of stricter rules. Now we are going to see the do's and don'ts. Yeah. Now, how we used to code, or how the previous HTML is a bit different with how we code the current web pages. We are going to maybe see some kind of difference. Yeah. That's why we talk about it being strict. Now, you can have one benefit of using, instead of that, it helps make web pages look identical in different browsers. Yeah. So for compatibility reasons, HTML actually is the best. Yeah. So that means if you happen to open your website within the Chrome, you can still do the same within the Explorer without realizing major layout issues. So the way the image is going to appear in Chrome is the same way it's going to appear within the Firefox of Mozilla. So that is courtesy of XHTML. Yeah. So maybe earlier on, you had to really develop and test your HTML pages in different browsers. But right now, once you have tested it in one browser, you are always assured that it is going to appear well across the multiple browsers. So that is the reason as to why on some of the pros that the XHTML has compared to the previous versions. Now, to make our pages more interactive, we are going to also understand how to use the CSS. And of course, we mentioned about the JavaScript. Just to ensure that you can make it interactive, right? So the cascading style sheets, we learn them later on as we have, after we have mastered the concept of extensible HTML. So a brief history about this. It started way back, you can say 1991. So right now we are actually launching or using the HTML, but you can say so widely used is the extensible. Yeah. So if you have an understanding of extensible HTML, you can always use the current version of HTML. So there's not much of the difference, except of the different tags, maybe that I'll mention when you're comparing the two. Of course, also we introduced the concept of a web page and a website. So you should be in a position to differentiate the structure of a website and of a web page. Yeah. So if someone talks about web page, are you able to maybe give us the distinct uh, structures of a web page compared to a website? Now, talking about the extensible HTML, we need to understand that after you have opened, like for example, a notepad, when you save that particular notepad, it must have an extension of what? Of a HTML. So this is the default extension for all the websites. Yeah. So you're not going to have like for example, if you are coding based on HTML5, that you're going to have .html5. No. Or now that you're talking about extensible HTML, you're going to have .xhtml. No. The default file extension for all, or the default standard extension for all the web pages is actually .html. So again, I repeat, once you have launched your notepad, for it to be recognized as a web page, you need to have a .html. Yeah, so you just have to, like, for example, to start as, you can always maybe have it as a first page .html when you're saving that particular file, right? So we can open these particular websites or web pages using different editors, as I've mentioned. But the one that you are going to use is actually the notepad. Now that I have told you to have your notepad, you can say after you have saved it, I hope you can do that. Yeah. Like the problem is that I need to share a lot of. Maybe I'll briefly show you how to go about that. Now, so after you have saved your, now one thing that I also need you to do is to create a folder that you're going to store your respective HTML files. Yeah, we're going to see where we need to store all the pages under one folder. So, of course, this is the step. As you can see, the file extension there, someone has typed .html. So that's what you need to do. So once you have saved, once you have typed the various HTML tags, you need to save it with .html tag. I mean extension. Now, why are we using, for example, Notepad or the recommended editors such as Notepad++, the likes of Remover? Yeah, is because they give us the right environment to actually execute these particular HTML elements that you're going to look at. Yeah. For example, never use Word, yeah, or any other processing application, yeah, to create or edit web documents. Why? Because they can always have or come with other additional styles or characters that can interfere with how the websites are displayed. The concept of coming up with a website, remember we looked at the various protocols that are associated with a particular or how you define a website. Like for example, for you to, or for the website to be able to, for you to go to launch the website, you need to have the HTTP protocol, right? So if this protocol doesn't understand maybe the contents of your website, it's not going to display those particular content. So you must code your website using the right application, and the one that you are recommending is the Notepad. All right, so let's dissect and understand the various parts of this kind of XHTML document. So step by step, you'll say that the highlighted part is what we're going to be discussing. So the first part is actually to understand the doctype, right? Yeah. So we are going to look at every element that you see displayed there and what you need to really type at what point, and the pros and cons of doing it maybe the opposite way, right? So at the top, or how do you identify for example, what is the common identifier for all the websites that maybe are developed using the XHTML? Yeah. So we need to have this kind of doctype at the very top. So why? Right? So a doctype is a declaration that must be specified, the first line of each web document. Now, this is just a way that you're telling the browser, you're telling the protocol that, hey, I'm using this particular, my website, this is actually a web page that runs HTML, and you give it a precise information on the type of HTML version that you're using. Yeah. So the doctype actually is a way of telling the web browser which version of HTML is written in. Yeah. Like for example, you can see this one is now using the doctype version of 1.0 transition. Yeah. We can always have that. Yeah. Of course, we have other versions of HTML like version 2 or 3. So you can always indicate the version that you are actually using. It's very important. Yeah. So the first thing that you need to have is the doctype. Now, we are going to look at the various parts. Right? As you can see, there's a greater than, less than sign. Yeah. So as you can see, for you to have the doctype, this is like we normally say it is a self-closing element. Self-closing element in that it has the two opening and closing tags. You're going to see what are all these in our respective slides. But again, what I need us to understand at this moment on time is that if you are starting your HTML website, you must specify the doctype. So the doctype actually has some kind of attributes or declarations, right? As you can say, you can also specify the language that your website runs on. Is it maybe English? Yeah. So like, for example, there's AN, that means that our page is based on the English language. Yeah, if you want it to maybe translate to a different language, or if you are coding it in Kiswahili or any other language, you can always specify, right? So I think, of course, you don't really need to crack your head on how the browser or the protocol understands all this. Yeah. So at the tail end, maybe we are going to see the main important elements that you can always have. And actually, the second one after the doctype is the HTML. Yeah? The HTML element. Yeah. So you have to specify the HTML element after the doctype. And within the HTML element, we have other elements. As you can see, we have this head. We have body. You can see those elements, right? So, like for example, the head element surrounds all the special behind the scenes element. Now, what we're saying is this: there's a kind of structure when you are adding this kind of elements that we need to follow. Yeah, that's why we are going step by step. Yeah, so you don't just add the elements anyhow. Yeah, so from the doctype, the other element that you need to add is the HTML element. Yeah, I said that I'll briefly show you how we have that. Yeah, and of course, after the HTML element, that means that now you have told a particular browser or the protocol that this particular page is actually a web page using the HTML element. So you define the header or the various title within the head element. As you can see, the head element, you can have the meta element. We're going to look at the meta element in a short while. And also we have the title. Yeah. So like, for example, if you visit a particular website, it always has the title, right? So here is where you define the title within the head element. So within the head element, we have other sub elements such as the title. Yeah. So the title must always reside within the what? The head element. So also the meta. Meta is a description. It allows you to give more information about the website, such as use of the keywords. Yeah. So if your website is talking about maybe some services or products, you can always add the keywords at this particular point. Of course, also you can add the author information or any additional information that you might associate with your website. Now, normally, the information that is specified within the meta element is not always displayed. Yeah, so the end user, the person who actually access your website doesn't really see the meta elements. But you can always look at ways that a user can be able to look at your already established meta elements. Now, the other element is the body. The body here is now where the main content. Yeah. So here's where you now add your various content. It could be text. It could be text in form of videos, images, and so on. Right. So take note of this kind of arrangements so that as you go and start actually creating a web page, you need to conform to the various elements. So I said that we are going to mention about the meta, and as you can see, meta has different also attributes, right? This one provides information about the document browsers, right? Like, for example, how do you encode the characters within this particular. So there's a standard that you can always use. We also have author information that can be added there. As I mentioned, you can also add the keywords, right, within the meta elements. Yeah, so it's not, most of people don't really add it, but it's very, very important because the first place that the search engine visits in any given web page or website are the meta. They normally check on the meta first, meta element. What are the information that the meta provides? Yeah. So if you have the keywords, it's going to actually associate your website and actually give out the results of your website based on the meta information. As we proceed, we are going to maybe look more and understand about these elements. Now, within the head, I've mentioned that you need to also have or bring on board the title, right? So title element, as the name suggests, it associates your web page with a relevant title, right? So it's normally and must appear within the head elements or head section of your document. So each and every website page must and should have a title. So of course, a title is also a way of distinguishing the various web pages that you have. So in our scenario, we are, of course, I'm going to share with you the project. Maybe after next week, after we have learned the nitty-gritties of how we can come up with HTML. So in our scenario, you are expected to have a project based on maybe your organization or a given organization develop a website for them. So you're most likely to have like more than 5 pages. So those 5 pages will have different what? A title. So at the bottom there, you can say every document or web page must include one instance of a Doctype, HTML, head, body, and title. Like these ones are must for each and every web page. So as you develop or create your website, web pages, these are part of the template that you can always get in each and every website. Now, there's some kind of roles that you need to conform when you're coming up or having these XHTML. Remember, I said that they provide or they have kind of stricter rules compared to the earlier version. So all elements that we have mentioned must be inserted in lower letters or lowercase letters. Take note of that. Yeah. So that is the standard that XHTML provides. Yeah. Now, remember, as I mentioned, that the doctype is really not part of the element. Yeah. Some people normally, you can actually omit it. Yeah, you can omit it. You can't really add it, but automatically the website or the protocol, after looking at the elements and how you have structured your website, it will automatically identify the kind of what a doctype that you're using, and it's going to automatically append it. Yeah. So in most cases, even if you don't add it, most cases the protocol is going to append it for you. Yeah. But a good practice for any web designer or developer is always to add it manually, so that you get used to understanding what this doctype is all about. Any question? Swali. All right. So also the lowercase rule, we can say, applies only to the XHTML or extensible HTML code within the tags. These characters, the greater than and the letter sign. These ones are what we refer to as a tag. But what gets or what you type outside these particular tags is not a must that they should be lowercase. Like, for example, you can see here, for example, the title. Yeah, you can see the page starts, the word page starts with P, capital P, and the title starts with capital T. So it doesn't mean that, since you have said that it should conform to the lower cases, it's only the elements. Take note of the elements. The elements are the ones that are enclosed within the tags. Yeah, the tags are those less than and greater than signs that you can always be able to see, right? Now, talking about the tags, the first one that appears before any given element is what we refer to as the opening tag. And the one that appears after, and that is always the greater than sign, is always the what? The closing tags, right? So a tag is an extensible HTML command that tells the browser to perform some set of what? Actions. So it's very, very important that we must always have these particular tags within any given elements. And we're going to see how to position the various tags. Yeah. And as we understand additional elements, we are going to see the roles of the various tags. Like, we have those particular tags that are associated with the elements that are self-closing. Yeah. So self-closing elements. Right? Like the meta. As I mentioned, meta is a self-closing element. As you can see, it has the opening and the closing, and that is it. There's no additional. So you can say those are the kind of the elements that you're talking about, the tags. The ones we also have talking about also the opening tags. We need to understand that when you are actually coding a particular element, like, for example, the head element, it should also have an opening tag and also a closing tag. Like, for example, the head, it has an option for the one in green, and also we have an option for what? The one in red. So the one in green shows that is the opening tag or opening element for the what? For the header. You have to close it. Yeah, as the one in red shows you're closing that particular head. So there are some kind of words or terminologies that we need to get used to. Opening and closing tags. We also have opening elements and closing elements. Mostly they are interchanged. Someone is going to be using opening and closing elements to refer to opening, opening and closing tags to refer to opening and closing elements, which is still one and the same thing. So it's just how you can describe and understand how this particular functions. So it's very, very important that each and every opening element must have a closing element. And each and every element must have an opening tag and also a closing what? A closing tag. So that is very, very important for us to understand at this particular moment. Now, we also need to understand that we can also nest the elements. Now, nesting is actually having a particular element inside another element. Like we can say, for example, here, that the meta and the title elements are nested in the head element. As you can see, we have the head element and also the closing head element. And in between, there's a meta element and also the title element. So we refer to these two elements as nested elements. So those elements that appears or that are housed within a particular element is what we refer to as the what? The nested element. So someone is going to maybe ask you for the difference and give an example of that. So you can say we have the opening element head and closing element head, and in between we have the meta and also we have the title. So take note of that, meta and also the title, and also title need to close. Yeah, so the ones that are paid red, those are the closing elements, right? That you need to understand. Now, as we have said, the extensible HTML has some kind of strict or rules that you need to follow. Yeah, so should you not do things in the right way, most likely you're going to have some kind of errors. So maybe one of the errors that you're likely to encounter is the nesting error. Nesting errors appears when you don't conform to the arrangements. Like you can see here, the head, the title is not nested within the head, what? The header elements. That's why there's a nesting error. This one is not acceptable. So if you happen to come up with a website that has this, even the search engines themselves, like if someone is Googling your web page, yeah, it is not going to give the right result. Yeah. So it's very, very important that we understand this. So even if you happen to work with WordPress and there's some kind of malfunctional elements, you need to identify them because now you have those particular understanding of what kind of elements or how you can come up with the various elements. So take note of the structure so that you have the correct nesting, right? Don't have one element outside a particular element that's not supposed to be there. So you can say we have closed that particular head element, but outside there we have the title. So title should be closing the title element that you've already seen. I think we are getting the concept. Yeah. So these are some of the things that we are going to check. Yeah. So that at least we have a correct coded or a correctly coded HTML. Now, if you take a look at the meta, a meta has we say that meta is self-closing one element. Yeah. So you can see it has an opening tag and a closing tag. Now, within the closing tag, you can see it kind of has a line. We normally refer to it as out. Don't know, this line tilts towards the right side. Now, that kind of line is associated with a closing one, with a closing or a self-closing element. Yeah, we're going to look at the different categories of self-closing elements, right? Yeah, we call it the forward slash. Sometimes these terminologies disappear. So this is a forward slash. We also have the line breaks and spaces. Yeah, now it's a good practice to actually space your elements. Yeah, though there's actually no problem if you don't space them. Yeah, because if you use the right elements, automatically your content is going to do what? To space themselves. Yeah, but it's always important that at least you can always space your elements. I mean, the various elements as you code them. Yeah, but ultimately, when they're being displayed, they would be seen as spaced the way you space them within Notepad, right? But how do you space them? So you have the elements such as a page, paragraph, actually, paragraph elements that allows us to create some kind of spaces. So we'll see how to standardize these particular spaces and how to come up with various line breaks within our notepad. So I think if there's no question, allow me to also share another slide so that I can proceed. So yes, I don't. Someone is raising their hand. I don't know. Status. Yes, it's status.
Okay, I had a question.
Yes.
I just do believe that you've said that issues to do with lower casing and
Yeah.
issues to, yeah.
Yeah.
Does it apply even during the when you're coding the body part of it, or it just appears on the header and the meta?
Not okay. I think we need to get something clear here. Yeah, the rule of casing only appears for the elements. Yeah. So far, like for example, the elements that you have looked at are, for instance, the meta, is it? Now the elements are those ones enclosed within the tags, greater than and less than signs. Are we together? So those are the elements you're talking about, and they should be lowercase. They should all be lowercase. So like for example, if you are coming up with a title element, you don't need to have a capital E as a then the rest in lowercase. They should all be in lowercase. Even the body tag or the body element should be in lowercase, as long as it features as part of the element. Now, whatever gets or whatever you type or actually, like for example, within the body, if you're adding your different content, it doesn't now conform to the restrictions that you give to the element. So these ones you can have capital, if you like, you can have a line, you can add images. I don't know whether that one makes sense.
Yeah, sure, it does make.
As we proceed, we are going to see maybe a clear distinction of what we really mean, right? All right, so let's take a look at the other category of elements. So we have, for the better part, see the header elements, yeah, the ones that actually appear at the very top of your web page. So we need to take a look at the text elements, right? So so text elements are now the way that we can actually position the various contents within our website. Yeah, it's talking about creating now the spacings using the paragraph elements, yeah, and so on. So let's take note of this. So we have already learned about this. So let's learn at another. So we're going to take a note of how we can paragraph our content. Maybe use the break. Break element is an element that allows you to divide. Yeah, if you have some sentence, you can divide them maybe into two, yeah, so that you say it starts in the next line. We also have the horizontal rule, which means you can always add on. You can add a line within your content. You can also define your various headers or titles within the body using headers like heading 1, yeah, heading 2, all the way to heading 6. I think that's the last heading that the extensible HTML provides. We can also order our content. An ordered list refers to using bullets. Yeah, when you want to bullet your work or bullet your list, use the an ordered list. We also have ordered list, which refers to numbering, kind of, right? And of course, to uh, have this kind of unordered list, you need to have the element list so that you can list those particular items. So let's take a look at the first element, which is referred to as the paragraph element or the P element. Yeah. So these elements are associated or are nested within the body element. Yeah. So you can say it appears within the body element. Yeah. So always ensure that you can have your opening element and your closing element. Yeah. And within these particular elements, also you should ensure that you have a closing tag and opening a tag. And also ensure that they are in lowercase, right? As you can see, the body element is in lowercase. Even the P is in lowercase. So those are the things that we refer to as having them in lowercase. So the P here is demonstrated of how the P in action, the paragraph in action. Yeah? So whatever you type, we code on Notepad, this is how it's going to be saved on the left side. Yeah. So you can see it's the paragraph element adds a blank line. Yeah. So once you have the P, it's going to always ensure that the content have or create some line. So it's very, very important that you style your work using the paragraph so that at least we can see that this is the one paragraph and the other one is another paragraph. So we are still proceeding with understanding the different element categories. So as you can see, the P element allows us to have paragraphs, right? So the standard way of presenting blocks of text in an XML document is using the paragraph element. We also have the break or the BR element. Yeah. So the break can be used inside a paragraph to break or to ensure that the sentence begins on a different line altogether. Yeah. For example, you can see here, this is a text. This is the second paragraph of the text. So if you have the BR, yeah, you can see the end result. The line is actually divided into two, so that you have two lines. So the break element allows you to divide a particular sentence or line into two. Now, a good example of a self-closing element is the break. So you can see within itself, it has the opening and the closing tag. Yeah, close. So we don't really have to have another additional element like the closing element such as BR. Yeah. So by using this word slash and the element itself together, that one shows that this is a self-closing element. So I think now we understand how the self-closing elements look like. Yeah, like the body and the closing element body, this is not a self-closing because they're separate. But for the BR, they are all together based on the that kind of arrangement that you can see. So the BR or the break element creates a line break without adding any blank lines above or below. Actually, it's different as compared to the paragraph in that there's no space created between the two lines. Perfect. The other element is the HR element that you need to understand. This one allows you to draw or come up with a line as shown. Yeah, HR is also our self-closing element, as you can see, right? So you can also nest it within the paragraph, right? So if you want to separate your different contents, you can use the HR element, right? So if I'm projecting this particular presentation, I might not be able to see if you're raising up your hand. So just allow me to finish and then give you a chance to ask a question. So take note of this slash or what slash say within this kind of self-closing elements. So the HR or horizontal rule element allows you to draw some kind of line across the screen. Now, as we proceed with the understanding of how to develop, we are going to see how to modify different elements using the cascading style sheets, and even the site can also have some scripting options to see how we can do it. Talking about the elements, also we need to take note of how we can have the different headers. Yeah. So most commonly used is always the heading 1 and heading 2. Yeah, most people don't use heading 3, heading 4, and heading 5 and heading 6. Now, a good web design and develop student should be in a position to differentiate these categories of heading elements. Heading 1 element is normally associated or picked as one that is defining like the main header or the main title within that particular page. And it's mostly used once. Take note of that. You can use heading 2 styles or add heading 2 elements more than 2 or more than once in a particular page. But it's always recommended that you can only use heading 1 element once. Why? I don't know, but it's because the search engines prefer that. Yeah? Normally, if you duplicate or have heading 1, I don't know what that means, but this one cannot see my head. No, heading 1 style, actually, the search engines normally flags when you repeat them multiple times. I think it's not appropriate. Now, from my end, based on how I understand this arrangement, is that heading 1 is normally associated with the keywords. Yeah, like for example, if you're talking about a particular page or you're creating a particular page, let's say like for example, you're creating a page for your company, talking about who we are. Yeah, so who we are can be captured as a title, right? And also who we are is also supposed to appear within the body text as the heading 1. Yeah. So normally most search engines, once they associate the title that you give to the web page with the heading 1 style. Yeah. So if you happen to repeat heading 1 style, that means you're repeating the keywords, and it's going to be flagged as not the appropriate way of coding your HTML elements. I know it's a bit technical to understand what I'm saying, but with the time you're going to get hold of what I'm talking about. Anyway, what you're saying here is that you can always enhance the look of your document or the content using this kind of heading categories. So apply heading 1 only once. Heading 2, you can always use them several times, even heading 3. Now, heading is heading. You can't really have heading as part of maybe a paragraph. Yeah, heading is going to be seen as heading. Yeah, so those are the heading elements. Yeah, so if you want to use the paragraph elements, use it. Yeah, paragraph elements will just capture the normal body text without really appending the heading 1 side. So the examples there, you can see how they look, right? The heading 1 looks a little bit bigger compared to heading 2. Heading 3 is so small. So these ones You can use them several times within your content. So you're free to use the various heading elements as you have seen. Always ensure that you're opening and closing elements, right? Within those particular tags. So of course, we also have another element that you need to understand. I already mentioned it. As you can see, we have an ordered list. An ordered list or the UL creates an indented bullet points list of items. Yeah. So if you want, for example, you can say there's some kind of fruits that are captured in bullet format. Yeah. So you can always have those kind of elements. As you can see, the list element is nested within the unordered list element. And also the unordered list element is nested within the paragraph element. And the paragraph element is nested inside the what? The body element. The body element is nested inside the what? The head element. And the head element always is nested inside the what? The HTML element. And of course, outside the HTML, I mean, out of the HTML element, you have the Doctype, right? So if you want to list your content using bullets, use the unordered list. Take note of that. We also have ordered lists. This one using numbers or independent lists of numbered items. Yeah. So what changes here is just the O. Yeah. So unordered use O, U, L. Ordered elements use O, ON. Right. So that's how we can always order or use the ordered list. So any question before maybe we check on the other? Any question regarding the elements that appear within the body? It is my hope that you are in a position to type these elements within your notepad. Yeah, because there's no. I really won't allow you to copy paste codes. Yeah, I have a way of understanding if these codes are copy pasted. So I would really appreciate if you type them and understand what they do. Yeah, because you can't really understand how a WordPress, for example, website operates or a Drupal website operates if you don't have an understanding of these nitty-gritties, the main elements of the HTML. All right, no question. Let's see the other elements. All right, the other main elements that we need to understand is how actually we can link the various pages, yeah? And maybe how we can comment some part of our codes, yeah, or elements. Now, links are very, very important. Yeah. Without links, you can't really navigate from one web page to the other, or you can't even navigate from one part or section of your web page to a different location within your web page. So you must be in a position to understand how these links are normally created. So any link that you can always meet or engage with, yeah, the moment you click on a link, you need to understand how these links operate. Yeah, so that's the reason as to why we need to understand these links, how the links elements, and of course, commenting. A good practice of any developer is to be able to comment or tell us more information about what they're doing. Yeah, because we don't really expect you to be handling that website for as long as you exist. Yeah? You might leave the organization, someone else can take over. Yeah? So we must maybe demonstrate by sharing some kind of information on how this kind of codes or HTMLs were actually integrated within the web page. So comments is very, very essential. So we're going to see the kind of tags we use for comments. Now, we talk about links. One of the major elements that you need to understand is the A element, commonly referred to as the anchor. You normally get people talking about the anchor text, yeah. So, or the anchor link. Yeah? So these are some of the clickable areas. You can place your anchor within a text. You can also have the A element within a video. You can also have an A element within a picture or an image for that matter. So anything that you can be able to click normally has an A element. Yeah. So the four favorite links that we must know or understand is actually the external link. We have the external link. Now, this is a link that is associated with external websites. Like, for example, if you have your organization website and you want to link it to a different web page or website, we say you are using an external link. We also have internal link. Internal link is a way of linking the various web pages within your website. Yeah. So you just have to link the different web pages within your website, right? We have the bookmark link. Yeah. This one allows you to maybe specify a particular part of a web page or a different location of the web page within the same page. We also have the email link. Normally, if you, for example, within the contact page, I'd appreciate if you have these links. You want to share your link, your email link. You can always have the email link. So if someone click on that link, automatically it's going to open the software, the email software that you're using, right? So let's see the various attributes of this particular element. Now, the other terminology that we need to understand are the attributes. I think I've been using it maybe when you're describing, I think, the meta. Yeah. So attributes are add information, or for example, if you want to accompany a particular element or describe a particular element by associating it with additional information. Yeah. Yeah. You can always use the attributes. Yeah, and these attributes are good when you want maybe to change or control how a particular element actually functions. Like, for example, the A element, we have the additional attributes that specify the external what? The external web link that you can always have. Like, we have the href, yeah, that is, it shows the kind of external links that you can click. We also have the target. Yeah. So each element has its own set of attributes available. Yeah. Usually these attributes are optional, but in some cases they are mandatory. So it depends. Yeah. You can always add them based on how you want some kind of appearance or how these kind of elements to behave. Again, take note of this. Attributes. I think there's another terminology that I haven't maybe mentioned, is the attribute value. Yeah, so like, for example, we have the href. The href is actually has an equal sign. Then it is appended to a particular quotes. Yeah, so the whatever is in quotes is what we refer to as the attribute value. So always take note, you have to associate a particular attribute value with its respective attribute. So whatever is always in quote is what we refer to as our attribute values. Yeah. So attribute values must be enclosed in quotes. Otherwise, there's going to be an error, especially when you're having when you want to display images. Yeah. If you don't have the right attributes in quotes, then it's going to the image is not going to display properly. Again, you can have more than 2 attributes within a specific element, no harm. Yeah. So you can see that's how the attribute looks. We have the attribute value. Yeah. So we have 2 attributes here and 2 attributes value. Now, you can see, look it up on Google. Now, this is the anchor text, the one in black. That is the anchor text. Normally, it's the clickable text. I think you're going to see, look at it next slide. So this is the rest is not going to show. HTML is not going to show. The URL of the Google is not going to show. But when in the website, the user is only going to look at or going to see the look it up on Google text, right? So as you can see, the clickable area, yeah, you can see look it up on Google. So that is the anchor text, yeah, and it's displayed using the A element, right? Now, additional information here, like the target. If you talk about the external, if you want to, like for example, if you want to link a particular web page externally, like the Google website, yeah, you can always specify the attribute for the target as blank. Yeah, so blank ensures that it shows the href. It shows the anchor element that this particular web link is is a what? This particular web link is a is an external link. Yeah, what's sorry. All right, thanks. So the blank actually tells the anchor, or actually the A element, that this particular link is actually what? An external link. So when you click on that particular link, it's going to take you to the what? To a different web page altogether. So take note of that. Yeah. So not every A element must be associated with a blank or the target. Yeah. We're going to see how we can look at the different category of links. Yeah. So you're told whatever text is placed between A and A tags, opening and closing tags, will display on the web page and become clickable. I think that's what we have already seen or discussed. Yeah. So I think I have also explained this external link. Yeah. So you can see the blank option is associated with what? An external link. So normally the href specifies the link. Yeah, and the target specifies where this link takes us, right? So mostly, if you leave it or if you don't specify the target link, automatically it's going to take you to the external page. But it's very, very important that specify. Also remember, attribute names must be in lowercase and attribute values must be enclosed in quotes. I think this is always a reminder. Also, the attribute names. Yeah, if you're using this kind of extensible HTML, take note of that. So the code we just used is an example of external link. Yeah, it actually takes us out of the web page or our website that we are going to develop. Now we also have the internal link. Yeah, as you can see, the internal link doesn't have these additional attributes that we mentioned. Yeah, like you can see, we have the internal page, yeah, like page 2 of your own website. Yeah. So it's a very brief way of having the A element, and you can see the target attribute is normally omitted, yeah, within your own site. You don't really need to have it. Yeah. So should someone click on the page 2, automatically they are going to be taken to the page 2 of your website. Could be about us page within your website, could could be the contact us page within your website. Yeah, so take note of that. That is the internal link. So to create an internal link to another page on your website, the site, you need to have the same. The other one is the bookmark. Bookmark link allows you to specify a particular part of your page. Yeah. So if you want the user to click on a particular link and being directed to a particular part of the page, that's what we refer to as the bookmark link. Now, this is normally reinforced by using the pound sign. So if you look at the first element, the HTML, the first attribute, you can say it has the rail sign. You really don't write the pound sign. So the rail sign actually allows you to specify where this particular link is going to take us. For example, now the second element, you can say the end. Yeah. So if you click on the click here to go, it's going to take you to the conclusion part of this particular website. Yeah. So it's a bit confusing to add this kind of element, but once you understand how to add the rail sign, you can always get to understand how to associate it with the destination. Now the destination element has the ID. Yeah? So this one, the ID is associated with the type of what? It could be the number that you place within the H, the H. Yeah? So that ID. So if ID was one within the H, you must actually append it as one. Yeah? So they should be identical. Yeah? So you can have as many bookmark links within your website or web page. There's no problem. So a bookmark link is a link to another location within the existing web page. Yeah, and of course, also we have the other link that you can always associate yourself with. Normally, when you click or visit a particular website and you click on an email link, yeah, it brings or it opens up maybe the Outlook or the software that particular email. And actually, it appends also the your email link and your email address there. So that is normally a courtesy of particular email link. It's courtesy of this particular email link element. So again, you just have to specify the mail. Yeah. So this kind of attribute, we still have used the href and the value. You can see you must specify the mail value. And now instead of mail@domain.com, you can now have email address. Then always ensure that you have the clickable text that if someone clicks, as you can see, there's a send me an email. So if they click, it's going to open up that particular software that they're using. Yeah. Normally it opens the Outlook and you can now start posting email. Now, if the Outlook is not there, of course, it's normally there. Yeah, so you can always redirect or someone or the user can always use the Gmail if they want. So to create a link that automatically starts a new email message, you need to use the mail attribute value within the href attribute. Yeah. Very good. Now, the other part of our discussion is the comments, and I've mentioned that if you want to tell us more information about particular on what the content is all about, the tags, the commenting aspect is very, very important. So some reasons as why you need to comment. It allows you to explain the purpose of certain lines of code. Yeah, it really is a very good thing to do as a developer. It also allows you to indicate to fellow team members where the future changes or improvements will go. Yeah, like for example, if you comment that you're using this version of HTML, you can always do that. It also informs future programmers about the works of any of the known pitfalls in modifying content. Yeah, you can have some kind of disclaimer that you should do this or do that or use this kind of image. This will result to that. Yeah. So even you yourself, you can sometimes after maybe 2 or 3 years, if you're trying to look at how you coded your page, you might not be in a position to remember what you really want to do. So you can also remind yourself using the comments. Yeah. So the element of the syntax actually that you can use comment is as follows. As you can see, there's an exclamation mark, right? Just after the opening tag, right? And then there's some kind of 2 lines. Then you have your comment. Then you have 2 lines again. Then close it, right? So any website or any web page that has this kind of syntax, that shows that it is out. It is a comment. Now, now that this, when you comment a particular information, normally it's not shown. The web page doesn't display it to the users. You are the only one who can be able to view it from the back. But for the smart users, they can always view the source and they can be able to do it, to see your comments. So that's why that you're told here you should always be very careful as you comment. Yeah. So because people can always view your comments. Yeah. So how do you view a comment? Simply right click on a particular web page and select view page source. Not even viewing your comment, you can also view other tags that have been used. As you can see, how these kind of tags have been implemented, so right. So take note of that. Unless you have a question, you can quickly look at the other. So I think the other part, the images. How do you integrate images or add images within your web page, right? So to enhance the look of your website, it's very important that you understand how to add images, right? How can you reposition them, resize them, and so on. Yeah. So the image element is normally used to add a particular image to your website. Yeah. So we have the source attribute that defines the path or where this particular image is located. Yeah. Take note of the extension. You must specify the extension or the identification of your image. Is it a PNG image? Is it a JPEG image? Or is it a GIF image and so on, right? So the source attribute is very, very important. You can see the value. Yeah. The values are normally in quotes. Yeah. So nothing to really explain more there. The alternative or alt attribute. Sometimes when you visit a particular website, it takes long to load the image. Yeah. So instead it displays the alternative text. Yeah. So if you have the alt attribute, it can always tell the user the images to display that is going to be displayed. So it's a good habit to name all image files with lowercase letters and to use underscores or dashes instead of spaces. Now, any programmer or a good person or a good developer, you'll always understand that there's some kind of pitfalls that you can always have or encounter if you have a lot of spacing. Yeah. So, in as much as possible, try to eliminate or remove spaces. Instead, use the underscores. A good example of how you can have your image, as you can see, there's a vacation photo there. Really doesn't look well. So we are told that you can always specify the size. So you can always add some additional attributes within the image source. So you need to specify. So by specifying, you can say there's an added attribute, the width. You can specify the width. You can specify the height, right? And you can see now the image has actually is now looking very good. But if you don't specify the width and the height, normally it will take automatically the width of that particular website or web page, right? Again, you can add additional attributes. Yeah, but take note when you play around with the height and width, it will measure up to the exact width of the image before you upload it. Yeah, like for example, if you have an image that is a JPEG image that is has a height of 400 and a width of, for example, 300. Yeah, and then when you bring it on board, you try to fix and alter that image size, and let's say now you pose it to 200, the height of 200 and maybe the width of 150. It's not going to scale well, and it's not going to appear well. So a good practice is always to ensure that the correct reflection of the image size is actually captured within your elements. So that means you have to use the right tools or applications, either Photoshop or illustrators, to determine the right dimension of your of your photos or image before you actually use the HTML codes. Yeah, so it's a good practice. Now, the reason us to do this is to enhance the resolution or the pixel, yeah, of this particular image. Yeah, because if you force the image dimension within your HTML tags, it's not really going to appear well. Yeah, so ensure that you work on the image size before you actually code it within the HTML tag. So the solution is to optimize. You can use like this one. There's also available Microsoft tool, yeah, Microsoft Office Pick, that can always allow you to adjust the width and the height. Now, when we talk about images, the file sizes are very important. Avoid using very heavy or bulky images. Yeah, try to reduce the size as much as possible, right? So that when you are loading your web page, people can always very fast load those particular images. All right. So you can also associate your images and add the links. Yeah, you can add the links of those particular image. Yeah. So it's a very straightforward way of doing that. As you can see, you just need to have the href and then add the image there. Yeah. It should not be .html, but it should be .jpg. So we can always make it clickable. Yeah. We also need to understand the different image formats that you can always use. Like you have for photos, try to use .jpg. For logos, icons, PNG. For animations, icons, you can use JF. For the transparency issue, where you want maybe to ensure that the background color or the background format of the website is actually seamlessly is integrated with your logo, so you can use the PNG, yeah, so that someone cannot really tell the color of your image, because it's going to use the available background color within your website. So maybe I'll request you to do some more research on these categories of images. Someone might ask you to differentiate or to provide the features of what? JPG and PNG. So take note of that. Yeah, try to do some research and understand the difference between the three: JPG, PNG, and JPEG. What are they? Where should we use them? What are some of the features that we have that others don't have? Unless you have a question, we can quickly look at the other. Mhm. All right. Basic tables. How do you actually format your content? You can always use tables to maybe in your contents, right? Remember, tables come in rows and columns. Now, these are just basic of HTML that you need to understand. Once you understand this, now you can go to the next step to use the cascading styles. So, to come up with a table, you must have the table element. So this is very, very powerful. It allows you to display information in predictable and uniform fashion. Now, when you talk about the earlier versions of HTML, this is the way that people used to have to actually arrange their work. Yeah. So it was not that good, since most developers saw it as a way of misusing the table element. Yeah. So we have nowadays you can just specify specific contents within that particular page using the table. So we can specify the contents inside a particular row or cell. Remember the intersection between a row and a column, we have a cell. So cell is where we can always add the different categories of content. Like you can add an image within, like for example, you have multiple images, you can add them within particular cells, right, and arrange them properly. So it goes without saying that table element will also have different categories of elements for now you create the what? The rows and the columns. So to define the row, you need to have the TR element. Yeah. To define the spaces that actually appear within those rows or the cell, you can always use the TD. So we have the nested elements within the table that you need to take note of, right? So you can say how these kind of elements have been nested and how they are projected in the real web page. So there's Arizona, Atlanta, Georgia, you can see. Yeah. So you can always have your table with the right elements. So the TR, the TD, see how they have been, look at the closing and opening tags of each and every one, each and every element. See how the contents have been placed. Yeah. So you can add additional attributes within this particular elements. Like for example, if you want to define the size or the width of a row, you can always add those particular attributes. And these are some of the things that you can maybe on your own, yeah, as you develop your website. Yeah. So once you have learned one concept, always try to replicate it. Yeah. So you can say one of the attributes that have been added here, for example, is the border. So the border has been given 1 inch, I believe. You can see there's a border there. Yeah. So we can always add different attributes to make our table more clear. Also, we can bold or make some kind of part of this particular table bold using the table header option. You can see the state and the capital, the headers. Yeah. So we can use the TH table header, see how it has been implemented. Yeah, you can practice and see how you can also do it on your own. Now, the table styling can be actually added using different elements as you have seen. Yeah. So, but you can do much more about styling this particular elements using the cascading style sheets and so on. Now we have other additional ways that you can style the table. Maybe let's take a look at that. Let's see, have a question. Any question? So let's take a look at maybe the advanced tables. Now, still have issues with my Zoom. I know, not Zoom, but Moodle. Moodle, some of us, me being one of them, I have issues accessing. That's why I still can't maybe share with you the slides. Yeah, but as I mentioned, I have my website. I can always share with you the link so that you get access to this particular notes as I wait for them to set my Moodle or Moodle account. Yeah, so I'll share the link for these notes after the class so that you can practice. Now, what I need from you is to be able to handle the various elements that you have so far learned, so that the next time we meet, we can now add on top of what we have learned. Yeah, so it should be a walk in the park, working with these basic elements of the extensible HTML. So it should be very, very perfect. If someone removes a particular tag and maybe ask you where the problem is, should be able to identify that problem and actually tell us how we can rectify the issue. Talking about tables, we can also have the advanced tables elements. As you can see, you can, now this one allows you to specify or play around with how the table looks. Yeah. So we can also have the call span. Yeah. Call span allows you to maybe merge the different rows by specifying how many number of rows. I think you're familiar with merge concept. Yeah. So call span can allow you to achieve that. We can build a data cell that spans more than one column by using the call span attribute. You can see it's also defined within the table cell. So, I mean, you can always add more attributes. Once you have learned one attribute, it's you now to know where you can always place it and use it, right? We also have the row span. As you can see, it now matches different rows. No, it spans across multiple rows, as you can see. So we can have that kind of arrangement. So the rows works the same way by informing the browser how many rows to combine into a single cell. So that's another additional way that you can enhance the look of your table, right? So this example shows how the column spans have been used. So you have to specify the value of the column. How many, for example, columns do you want to merge? 3, say 3. How many rows do you want to merge? 2, you can see the 2 rows have been merged. A good example, someone is going to draw for you such kind of a table, yeah, and tell you to write down the HTML, right? The HTML codes that have made this table appear the way it is. So you have to know exactly the right elements. So there's no assumption here. You have to be very, very specific and understand the attributes that are associated with each and every element, right? So yeah, there's also a way that you can add the caption. Yeah. A caption appears normally on top of a particular table, maybe identifying what the content of that particular table is all about. As you can see, to have this, you can always have the caption element. Yeah, you can add the caption element, right? So this one is normally positioned immediately. It should actually appear immediately before the row, or actually immediately after the table element. You can still go ahead and add additional elements. You can see there's a kind of an image. You can also add an image within. You can also add a link. You can see. You can also use ordered list within the what? The table. Yeah, that's why I told you that you can always, once you have known or practice to use given elements, you can always replicate them across different elements and use them in different occasions within your website. Perfect. I think with that, I've talked nonstop. If it was a normal class, I think I've engaged you on asking you questions and so on. So now that I'm the one who has been talking all that long, why don't you take this time now? Yeah, to practice. I've said I'll be giving you assignments. Once I get access to the Moodle, the high chances that I'll give you those assignments that I was to give you. So before you wait for the assignment, just practice your own. That once I issue the assignment, you can always just do them very, very fast and submit them. So there's no way you can submit them because the only channel that is required for you to submit is through the Moodle, and Moodle is what I don't have access to. So don't take advantage now that there's no assignments. You just break out of class and you go do your own things. Try to use the remaining